Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Hi, I'm Joanna Clark with Blissful Baby Sleep Coaching, and we are here along with my sweet poodle man. There he is. You guys can see Hansi. There he is. He's settling in. You might see him snoring a little bit, but it's a hot day outside and he wants to be inside where there's some air. Um, all right, so this is our Get Your Life Back. It starts with sleep. And I, have committed to being here weekly to help support you in all of your endeavors regarding making sleep a priority in your household. And I think it's fabulous that you are doing that. And I know it's really hard work. And I know it takes a lot of time, a lot of consideration. I also recognize that it brings up lots of feelings of self doubt and worry. Am I doing this right? Uh, um, could I be doing it better? Am I doing it right? Is there a different way? Why haven't I seen results yet? Like all of these thoughts are going through the minds of moms every day, all day long. And I just want to recognize that we all feel that way, especially when we're managing a child's sleep struggles and trying to align our sleep. And so I'm going to be addressing some of those questions today. So I just want to check in and find out who's here, and to just encourage you to participate. And I always recommend that you submit questions in advance so that I have the opportunity to kind of review your sleep situation a little bit more thoroughly so that I can really give you accurate and reliable information and feedback on how to improve your child's sleep. So today I actually have 4 great questions that have come in and some really great material that the moms have shared with me that I want to be able to address today. And if you want your question answered, then I highly recommend that you complete the form in advance so that I can come to the conversation prepared to help you. And I have Anastasia here, who is my fabulous virtual assistant. And she will, as I move through today, and when I'm referencing resources, I'm going to be asking her to post in the chat so that you guys can grab the links. And so, Anastasia, if you could please post the link to submit questions in advance. I know some of you might be here live listening, although some of you might be watching this on the replay. I will always send this out on email. So if you did submit a question, then obviously I'm going to be sending you the recording. But those of you that are not on my, are tuning in today or tuning in the replay, and you would like to be included in receiving the recordings and other information that I have to share on how to improve your child's sleep, as well as other issues for family wellness, then absolutely, let's get you on the mail list so that you can start getting all that wonderful material that will help you in your parenting journey. And the way to do that is you can either fill out the form and just say, I want to be added to your email list, or you can go to my website, which is blissfulbabysleepcoaching.com. And you can go to the contact me page and just fill out the form. And obviously I will make sure that you get the recordings. Those of you that are listening to this on the replay, if you have a question that you want, then if you can just do, hashtag replay in the comments, then I'll know to kind of scan the comments and make sure that I respond to you accordingly. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And again, I mentioned I had 4 individuals today submit, and it's kind of interesting because we've kind of got like each different age range and kind of each different kind of struggles that moms come into. So I think what I'm going to do to organize this today is I'm literally going to go by age. And so the first individual that we're going to be hearing from is Eva C. So Eva is from Nebraska, and she has a 12-week-old, and she didn't really tell me if it's a boy or a girl. So I'm having this vibe that it's a girl. And she's got a lot of questions. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of tell you guys a little bit of background on what's happening with her 12-week-old and what she's thinking and worrying about and kind of what her main question is. And I'm going to be addressing things along the way. So Eva, if you're here, I would love you to pop in and say hello, to make sure I'm addressing everything that you wanted to hear from me. Okay, so again, she's got a 12-week old baby girl, and she's been doing a great job following the 60 to 180 minute wake time interval, and that, but but she's only getting about 30-minute naps. So that's kind of the first problem, is she's following an awake window strategy, but she's only still getting shorter naps, 30 minutes. Then the other thing that's happening to her is that when she goes to try to help her baby girl extend the naps, to try to perhaps get a longer nap, she can continue, be in that room rocking for an additional hour, and that's really physically exhausting for her. And what she's really desiring is that she wants to get her child on a set schedule. She's going to be going back to work soon, and so this is really on her mind. And she also says that she wants the baby to stay asleep longer so that she can kind of get up in the morning and get ready before she kind of starts preparing the day. And she's also worried about the 4-month-old sleep regression. So lots going on here, Eva, and I'm going to try to kind of break it down into bits and pieces to address all your concerns here. Okay, so first, let's just talk about the fact that she has a 12-week-old baby, which in the world of sleep science, the newborn phase is considered 0 to 6 months. So with a 12-week-old baby, this mother, Eva, is absolutely in the zone of newborn, okay? And it is hard, you guys, to be a newborn mom, because sleep is always unpredictable in the newborn phase, always. And the reason why we see a lot of variability with wake times and a lot of variability with the lengths of naps is not because you're not doing a great job or putting sleep as a priority, but it's because the nature of newborn sleep tends to be extremely unpredictable because of the way that the hormone regulation is. So there are 2 hormones that regulate sleep. There's melatonin, which is your drowsy hormone, and there's cortisol, which is your wakefulness hormone. And those 2 hormones in the newborn phase are physiologically attempting to balance and regulate. And so usually the morning nap is the first one to form up first, meaning where you get to see that it's easier for your baby to fall asleep. You get to see that you might get 45 minutes or more of sleep. And then the second nap that kind of comes online is the second nap. And then of course the third power nap. And sometimes babies this age typically will need 4 naps a day. So here's the thing about 12-week-olds. It is totally normal to have to do 3 to 4 naps a day. It is totally normal for them to have short naps. So the way I like to think about newborn sleep is not exactly on how each individual nap plays out, but how the naps worked for that day within kind of your daytime shift. So I like to think of a newborn's life in kind of 2 shifts. The day shift, which is from on any particular day, from that day that they physically woke up in the morning, on that day when they physically went to sleep that night. That daytime shift, what we're looking to do for about, a 12-week-old baby is to be getting, certainly over 4 hours of daytime sleep spread between as many naps as it takes. And so you might find that you might have to do 4 naps a day. But if they all add up, if you get 20 minutes here and 45 minutes there and an hour here, et cetera, and it all adds up to over 4 hours a day, then you can feel really good about that day. You can say to yourself, I have met the daytime sleep expectations for this child. It didn't look exactly the way I wanted it to in terms of being able to, do an hour-long conference call while my baby slept. That's the tricky part, is that we want a set schedule for our newborns, but it's almost impossible for most mothers to force a newborn baby onto a set schedule. And the reason why is because the nature of the hormone regulation doesn't really make that possible. So I know that this is something that Eva really wants. She really wants a set schedule because she's got some things going on in her life that she needs that predictability. But unfortunately, we need to kind of make an alignment between what we want and what is possible. And typically with a 12-month-old baby, like the expectation and the want, or I should say the expectation and the want is very different from reality. And so I think you're better off just kind of recognizing that you're already doing a really good job, meaning you're following carefully with her sleep cues around appropriate wake windows, and that you are managing to get about 4 naps a day. And that if you could just kind of have in the back of your mind that at the end of those 3 to 4 naps, if you could be as close to 4 hours or over of daytime sleep, that you would have been successful. And then she has also wondered about the sleep regression coming. So again, she's got a 12-week-old. Next thing you know, the child will be 4 months. The 4 to 5 month sleep regression is always a very stressful period for families. It is no joke. It is very difficult. And, really the reason why the 4 to 5 month sleep regression is so challenging is because it is one of the first major physical and cognitive milestones that are happening simultaneously in their first 20 months of life. It's really the rolling milestone, which is from back to front and then front to back. They have to literally master 2 separate skills. Causes massive sleep disruptions when they're trying to move into that milestone. And they typically move into that rolling milestone right around the 4 to 5 months, which is why they call it the 4 to 5 month sleep regression. And so the one thing that I just want to explain to all moms, especially the ones, since we have different ages and stages here, is just to really recognize that whenever your child is going through one of the first big 10 developmental leaps in the first 20 months of life, there will always be sleep disruption, always. And so again, going back to aligning with what is reality and what our expectations are, super important here. The reason why there are sleep disruptions around a leap and a milestone is because the child literally feels disoriented because all these new skill sets are emerging and they are experiencing the world in a very they're experiencing the world in a very different way. And so you will typically see what we call the 3 C's, which is the crying, the clinging, and the crankiness during a milestone. We'll see a lot of that during the day. And then what happens is whatever we see during the day, we tend to see a complete exaggeration of that at night. Thus, sleep disruptions, the child being awake for long periods, the child being extremely unsettled when you are trying to help them go back to sleep at night. During milestones, we tend to get lots of skipped naps. During milestones, we tend to get a baby that becomes more fussy with their eating. It is not an easy time. And so when you hit a milestone, you just kind of have to come into alignment with your partner. Okay, here comes a milestone. We need to be prepared that this is not going to be an easy time for this baby, that we need to be extra attentive, extra patient, and just recognize that we're going to have a lot of sleep disruptions and maybe a crying, clinging, cranky baby for a couple of weeks while they try to master the milestone. Obviously, during this time, you want to give the child as much practice as possible to begin to practice and master the milestone so they can move through it quickly. My recommendation is to always, if you are a mom of a newborn, well, really, if you're a mom that has a child under 20 months of age, I highly recommend that you download the Wonder Weeks app. Wonder Weeks is the most amazing resource you can have in understanding these critical milestones your child will go through in the first 20 months of life. It's absolutely fascinating. Educating yourself on this will give you so much appreciation for human development and just be in further awe of your child, which is, I'm sure you're already in awe of your child, but this understanding the Wonder Weeks that your child will be going through is really fascinating. So what's great about the Wonder Weeks app is that you want to enter your due date, not the date of your child's birth. That's really important because all the data is related to gestation. And so again, when you download the app and you set yourself up on this account, You want to make sure to enter your due date, and then you can begin to start anticipating and tracking your child's milestones. And they give you a lot of information and material about what to expect uh, from your child during those, whatever the milestone is, since they have 10 of them in the first 20 months of life. So hopefully, Eva, that can help you. So to kind of round up her question, oh, here was another thing that was happening with Eva. So she's feeling really sleep deprived, obviously, because she has a newborn. And she's worried about the sleep regression coming. And the baby kind of seems to be rejecting dad, meaning that when dad ever tries to go help the baby go to sleep or go back to sleep, the baby, has a huge preference for mom to do it and not dad. And so it's been hard on mom because she's taking on the primary caregiving responsibilities and she's getting really exhausted. Super common, you guys, and very difficult. So what's really important as a newborn mom is to sit down with husband or partner and just really have a conversation about that caregiving is an equal responsibility, and that you as the mother need to give that partner the opportunity to be alone with the baby and to potentially make mistakes, but to learn from those mistakes so that they can become comfortable with their own caregiving role. Because oftentimes, if a dad is trying to caregive and mom is standing there criticizing or making suggestions, it makes the dad nervous. And then when the dad gets nervous, the baby senses it. And then the baby does further rejection of the dad. Very common. This is actually happening to Eva. So Eva, the way around that is to first sit down with your partner and just say, we really need to work on equal caregiving. And it's something that's going to take some effort. And one of the ways we can do it is, I know I need to give you the time and the space to bond with our baby. And I need to physically get out of the picture for 15, 20, 30 minutes, maybe an hour at a time, so that you can caretake. You can change the diaper. You can do the bath. You can, feed the bottle, or just hold the baby during the nap if that's required. But you, mom, need to give yourself a break and get out of the picture so dad can be successful, and that the baby will begin to build the trust and the bond with him. And will he make mistakes? Yeah. But isn't that how we all learn? Like, you're a brand new mom too. Have you felt like you've made a mistake? Yeah, I'm sure, because us moms, we think we make mistakes every day. But have you continued to learn and grow and improvise with your baby and follow your intuition? Yes. And so we want to give that dad that same opportunity. But oftentimes we have to be really deliberate with our partners and say, this is what we have to do as a family. I have to get out of the picture so you can be successful. But when you are alone with this baby, you need to be making an effort to truly caretake the baby, be available for the baby, do your best to understand their cues. And then the dad has to kind of show up in that way. It's going to be an uncomfortable conversation, but ultimately every dad that I've had to coach through this process has come back to me and said, that was the greatest advice you ever gave our family, to allow me to make mistakes and trust my own self and my caretaking abilities with this baby, and to let mom get out of the way so that I could feel more confident in myself. So I'm hoping, Eva, that will help you manage that conversation with your dad. I mean, with the father, the father of your child. So just to wrap it up for Eva, again, Eva, you've got a 12-week-old. Are you able to get a set schedule? No. Are you doing a great job with what you're providing your daughter so far? Absolutely. You want to just aim for 3 to 4 naps a day. Try to get over 4 hours of daytime sleep spread in between. I definitely recommend that you get that Wonder Weeks app so that you can start seeing what's coming forth with that sleep regression that might be coming, and you'll have a lot more material to be prepared for that. All right. So Eva, if you're here, I'd like you to tell me if you felt like that was helpful to you today. And I also just want to say, how many of you guys out there have had that situation where the baby kind of what I has is what I call like a mom preference, where you really want the dad to help you more. But whenever you try to create the scenario for that to happen, it's always a disaster. And the dad always kind of gives up and says, hands you the baby back and says, she's crying, you take her. How many of you out there have felt that, experienced that? If you have managed your way out of that dilemma and you want to share your experiences in the comments about how you kind of broke the barrier to get into more equal partnership with caretaking, I would love to hear that in the comments. All right. So the next question I have is from Zuli K. She's writing from California, and she has a 5-month-old, which again, still considered in the newborn phase, because remember I said the newborn phase is 0 to 6 months. And so she does have some of the similar concerns that Eva had. Oh, okay, let's see. So Anastasia had said, oh yeah, my mom instincts kicked in, and I don't mean to intervene. I've learned to back off and let dad get bedtime done. Yeah, absolutely. So important, you guys. This is what Anastasia had to say. She let her own mom instincts to back off to kick in. And it is hard, you guys. It's always hard to do less. But sometimes in doing less, we actually benefit the child. So I want you guys to kind of think about that for a little bit. Okay, so let me tell you what's going on with Zuli. So Zuli has a 5-month-old, and she's experiencing some short naps as well, 30-minute naps. And she's struggling with understanding, should I be doing 3 naps a day? Should I be doing 4 naps a day? How will that affect my bedtime? So that's been really hard for her. And she is also going back to work soon. And she is wondering, like, how do I manage going back to work and helping my daycare center get good naps for the child, because she's not yet on a set schedule. And she's just feeling really worried about what's going to happen when she's back to work, what's going to happen about the transition to daycare. She's been really actively working on the child's sleep during her maternity leave, and she wants to make sure it's still, it stays good. So I first want to say, Zuli, you have done a great job with helping your daughter learn how to do independent sleep at the onset of sleep at bedtime. So she has a 5-month-old that she's been in a good situation where she's able to do drowsy but awake at bedtime and fall asleep independently. And then she's sleeping pretty darn good throughout the night. And if she does wake up, they have found that the easiest way to help their child go back to sleep is just to kind of rock or nudge the bassinet a little bit. They've actually found out that if she tries to intervene more, meaning touching, rocking, holding, picking up, or even attempting to nurse her back to sleep in the middle of the night, that oftentimes makes it more difficult, and the child wakes up more, and that's been really hard. So you've done a great job, Zuli, with working on those foundational sleep skills up at the 5-month mark. So I think you should feel really proud of yourself, and proud of baby, your baby daughter, because that's a lot of work to get done in 5 months, and you've done a really good job with that. So here's what we need to do. Because we're still in the newborn phase, like I just mentioned in the last conversation, it is still normal for them to have shorter naps, 30-minute naps, 45-minute naps. And so I don't want you to worry about that. The thing that you need to recognize is that if they wake up from a nap and they're still looking really tired and cranky, then that might be the signal that trying to get them to go back to sleep would be a good thing to do. Now, this is kind of what Eva asked about too. And Eva was, taking like an hour to rock back to sleep. I know that can be exhausting and maddening. I don't want you to rock for a whole hour when you're trying to bridge and connect those naps. What I prefer you to do is tell yourself, okay, if my child woke up from a 30-minute nap and I can tell that they are still really exhausted, I can tell by their cry, or I can tell by the way they look, then I will pick them up and I will attempt to help them bridge that sleep cycle and see if I'm able to extend the nap by even 15, 20, or 30 minutes. And when you're trying to extend the nap by using some sleep crutches, which is perfectly fine to do, I would just hit the kind of a mental limit for yourself. You can try for 30 minutes of rocking, holding, etc. And if the child does not go back to sleep after 30 minutes of sleep support, then you can pretty much assume that although it was only a 30-minute nap, that was enough for them in that particular sleep cycle. Now, remember, you guys, I'm talking specifically about the newborn phase. Okay, this conversation gets really different when we're talking about a 6-month-old, a 7-month-old, a 15-month-old. Okay, so let's not forget that we're talking about the newborn phase. So, so oftentimes, if a child has a third or fourth nap, that truly is a cat nap. Like, it might only be a 15 or 20 or 30-minute nap, and that's perfectly normal. So that's kind of what Zuli was coming into, was that the child would have 3 pretty decent naps, but she could just tell that her child needed one more little nap, a fourth cat nap, and that would help her manage bedtime a lot easier. And absolutely, Zuli, you want to do that. Even a 15-minute nap can make all the difference. And again, what you're looking to do is to aggregate all the sleep from morning wake up until the time they're asleep at bedtime. How many naps did they take? And if you added up all the different nap increments, did they get, in this case, closer to 3.5 hours of daytime sleep for a 5-month-old? And then you'll know that you met the daytime sleep expectations. Typically, when a child that at 5 months wakes up from a third nap or a power nap, they will sometimes be ready for bed no later than about 3 hours after they've woken up from a cat nap. So they might have slept a lot and then only been awake 2.5 or 3 hours and be ready to go back to sleep for a full night's sleep. And so that is what's happening with Zuli. Let's talk about the transition to daycare. Okay, so the transition to daycare is always a negotiation between you and your provider. So some daycares have, very specific rules and regulations around when they do nap time and where the babies are, etc. And some babies do really well with moving into those more structured environments. But some babies just don't, you guys. And so when you're reviewing a daycare opportunity, you want to get really clear in understanding and knowing what they do for your child around nap. Are they in a darkened room? Are they in their own crib? Are they on a mat? Do they have are the caregivers or the daycare workers, caregivers willing to support the child? If the child needs to sleep longer than the nap period, are they able to continue napping, or are they woken up? These are all the specific questions you need to know. And sometimes you just have to try out a daycare and give it a month or two to see how your child adjusts, and and to be in constant communication with the daycare provider to try to make the appropriate adjustments where there's areas for improvement, and to see if they're willing to work with you. Again, like for some of my clients, they really, and I know it's so hard, you guys, it's so hard to find daycare, but they have tried working really hard with the daycare provider, and their child is just really sensitive sleeper, and it didn't work for their child. But you have to go into this with the deliberate knowing that you will be in communication with the daycare provider, that you want to be able to have open conversations with them about improving the sleep situation if you're finding your child is coming home too overtired and exhausted or overstimulated. And you'll just be in a constant mode of reevaluation until you determine that, yes, now things are evened out after a month or two of your child being there, or no, we are just not making any headway, in which case you have to look for an alternative. So I wouldn't say that you need to march in there and assume your child is going to automatically fall in line with their requirements, because the age and stage of your child might not dictate that they can. What we would be doing for a 12-month-old in daycare is very different than what we would be doing for a 5-month-old in daycare. And so you want to really talk to them and find out, what are they willing to do or not do for your 5-month-old. And so I just think I need more information from you to know what you think the barriers are going to be with your daycare provider. Another question that Zuli had was, if my child, okay, so she's having some early rising. So her child would normally wake up at 6 or 7 a.m. And now sometimes her child is waking up at 5 or 6. So let me address this. So 5-month-olds typically will sleep around 11 to 12 hours at night. And any waking after 6 a.m. is considered an appropriate wake time. So if she wakes up at 6:01, that's great. If she wakes up at 7 a.m., awesome. If she's waking up at 5:55 or 5:35, not so great. That would be considered early rising. So early rising is considered when a baby wakes up between 4 and 6 a.m. and they want to start their day. What we have to be careful of is when early rising begins, it tends to take on a life of its own. And if we start exposing a child to light and we start feeding them and we start beginning their day before 6 a.m., we tend to, by accident, embed that early rising behavior. So it is not uncommon for children to go in and out of early rising episodes. The key is you just need to be really consistent about how you attend to it. So if she were to wake up at 5:30 a.m., you would want to keep her in her room, darkened room, until 6 o'clock a.m. And then at 6:01, you could come into the room, turn on the lights, get her up, begin your day, do a feeding, etc. What do you do between the 5:30 and the 6 while you're waiting? I mean, absolutely, you can go in. And again, we're talking about newborns here, talking about children under the 6 months of age. Totally appropriate to go in and try to help your baby go back to sleep. Totally appropriate and in this case, Eva or Zuli has already weaned all the night feedings. So would Zuli want to go back and start feeding again after she'd worked really hard to wean all the night feedings? Probably not, because she doesn't want to start turning back on the child expecting calories at 5 a.m. because that will embed the early rising. So in this case, Zuli had already weaned off of any bottles or nursings in the middle of the night. So if her child woke up at 5:30, absolutely you can go back in there and rock her back to sleep. Absolutely you can go back in there and sit next to her crib until she either falls back asleep or until it's 6 o'clock, and then you can get up and start your day. So that's how I would address the early rising. She also wanted to know, should we set a bedtime, like this bedtime is always 7 p.m. Here's the thing. I don't believe in rigid schedules, especially for these younger ones, because I believe following their sleep cues is a much more intuitive way to parent, and often helps us stay more in tune to our babies, and that we're like not operating exclusively off the clock. We're actually looking to see how our child is doing and then responding accordingly. So typically, as I mentioned, Zuli, earlier in my conversation with you, is that, if your child has met the daytime sleep expectations, and let's say they've woken up from a power nap at 5 p.m., typically within 2.5 to 3 hours, they'll definitely be ready to go back to sleep. And so on some days, if she wakes up from a power nap at 4:30 versus 5 p.m., maybe her bedtime might be, closer to 6:30 or 7 versus if she woke up from the power nap a little bit later. So you want to try to stay within an hour of kind of the right sleep window, based on what time the afternoon nap ends. I do like to, if there is going to be a power nap, I definitely recommend that the baby wakes up no later than 5:30 so that you can easily stay within a reasonable time for bedtime. But I do think overall, Zuli, it's good to be flexible right now with bedtimes, meaning you will always be within about a half an hour to 45 minutes of the same bedtime every night, based on the fact that you're already doing a great job with having her get her naps in. And so, you know, Zuli is just saying, I'm just worrying a lot about if I'm doing it right. I'm worrying a lot about how I could be doing it better. And Zuli, I just want to confirm with you, you're doing a great job. You've made a lot of progress with a 5-month-old. Your baby girl is still a newborn. In the newborn phase, there is still going to be some unpredictability. And that you are absolutely following her cues. You're noticing her trends. I think it's amazing that she can sleep 10 to 11 hours at night without a feeding. That's amazing. So you've done a great job there. And I think that the transition to daycare is you have to just be flexible to know that your child is going to be going through a lot of changes. You have a 5-month-old. So in the first 2 months of daycare, she's going to probably be either finishing her 4 to 5 month sleep regression, followed by the transition to daycare. And that you'll just have to be working with your daycare provider to make sure that they're in alignment with helping her meet her daytime sleep expectations, which you now know what she looks like when she hits her daytime sleep expectation and when she doesn't. And for those of you that are like, what is she talking about? Daytime sleep expectations? What do I need to do? Then Anastasia, I'd love you to post my ages and stages sleep expectations chart. This is a great chart for all of you. In fact, let me see. I meant to have this at the ready. That will really help you get a really quick viewpoint of the age and stage of your child. And here it is. This is what you guys can get if you go to the link. So basically what I have here is the sleep averages chart from each age, hours of nighttime sleep, hours of daytime sleep, total amount of sleep in 24 hours, and then also typical awake windows for each of the ages and stages. So if you go to the link that Anastasia is going to be posting, then you can download that. It's called Sleep Matters, Get Your Ages and Stages Sleep Guidelines. This will probably be really helpful to all of you on this call today, but definitely with Zuli and Eva, who have the newborns. All right. So we are going to move on to our third individual, which is Lindsay from Pennsylvania. We have got a 15-month-old, and she has been breastfeeding her baby, and her baby girl goes to sleep awake after nursing, which is awesome. Like, bravo, mom! Bravo that you've been able to continue nursing and that you're able to have your baby do drowsy but awake at bedtime. However, this is now what's happening to poor Lindsay. Then her baby is now waking up every 3 to 4 hours all night long. And because she's a nursing mom, there she is. She's up nursing. She's up multiple times a night, and she's nursing back to sleep multiple times a night. And mom is exhausted. as she would be, right? 15 months of nursing, 15 months of waking up multiple times a night to provide that. I totally understand. So her challenge is she has other children to take care of, and so she's finding that she's just really exhausted during the day. She's feeling a little cranky with for herself and just kind of with her other kids. She loves to do her morning workout, and she literally hasn't been able to do it because she has literally no energy. Um, and I know that's so hard, right? Because those of us that love those morning workouts, and we know how good we feel when we can do them, and then when we're too tired to do them, it just kind of makes everything worse. Um, and so, you know, her ultimate goal is, this is Lindsay, that she wants to wake up refreshed. She wants to be able to do her morning exercise, and that she wants to be able to enjoy all her kids because she has the energy to do the caretaking during the day because she's had a good night's sleep. So her question is, how do I stop these night wakings? I'm guessing I have to stop feeding her every time, but how do I do that without hours of crying? Okay. So here's the good news, Lindsay. You've already set up a really good foundation for your child. This is, again, baby girl. You've established a great nursing relationship, so you should feel really good about that. You have already worked on drowsy but awake at bedtime, so your child is obviously learning some sleep skills at the onset of sleep. And now we just have kind of a situation where her body is expecting calories multiple times a night, and that's why she's waking up to nurse. So the only way to kind of unwind that is two things. So remember that a sleep crutch is defined as anything that has to be done to or for a child in order to go to sleep or to go back to sleep. In this case with Lindsay, her child needs to be nursed back to sleep. That is considered a sleep crutch. And so there's two kind of inhibitors for Lindsay. One is her child has a feed to sleep crutch in the middle of the night. And then the second problem is that now her child at 15 months is the child's body is expecting calories, you know, multiple times a night at those feedings. So it kind of anchors those arousals in a very difficult way. And so you're going to have to be like, really make a decision, mom, to turn off the hunger clock and wean gently off of those feed to sleep episodes. And you're probably going to have to do that by sleep training. Because really the reality is that at 15 months, your child typically doesn't need nighttime calories. You know, obviously you would always do a bedtime feed before bedtime. And obviously you would do a feeding upon waking. But that 10 to 12 hour interval from the time they fall asleep to the time they're awake in the morning, at 15 months, they typically don't need, you know, potentially 3 to 4 nursings in the middle of the night. What often happens to a lot of families when we see this kind of feed to sleep or feed back to sleep scenario in the middle of the night is we often see a child that doesn't want to eat very much during the day because the child is, you know, stealing all the calories that they need within a 24-hour period. They're stealing them from you in the middle of the night. And so then during the day, they can stay really busy and, you know, kind of eat mediocre solids and do a lot of snacking and do a lot of running around and a lot of food wasting for you. Like you'll prepare, you know, a meal or snack and your child just isn't really motivated to eat it because they're getting all their calorie requirements met during the night via nursing, which, you know, if you think about it, is the fastest, easiest way for them to go back to sleep. It's also the fastest, easiest way for them to get their calories met. And so a lot of times what I see with families that have babies that are 15 months and older, that these babies during the day are just like busy, right? They're like hanging out with their siblings and they're running around town and, you know, with mom and maybe not during COVID, but the mom is always struggling to get the child to eat well during the day because the child just is not motivated because they've been fed all night. So if you're here Lindsay. Let me know if that's your experience. If there's anyone else here on the live that wants to mention, like, oh yeah, that happens to me too. So really, Lindsay, what I'm going to have to recommend is you're probably going to have to do some sleep coaching. Okay. And the good news is that your child is already showing you they have their sleep skills at the onset of sleep at bedtime, because your child is doing drowsy but awake. And that's awesome, because that means you are really like on your way with this. Now we just need a structured approach. Now, many of you guys that have tuned in before, or those that you're here for the first time watching me, I'm a gentle sleep coach. So I do not believe in cry it out. I really do believe that sleep is a learned skill, and that we as parents need to create the right environment and the right circumstances for them to learn the skills of sleep. And that because we're asking them to learn a new skill, we would not expect them to learn and master a skill in 3 days. They didn't, again, Lindsay has a 15-month-old. Her child didn't learn how to magically walk in 3 days, or roll or stand in 3 days. Like, you need to be looking at sleep through that same developmental lens, that you want to create the right circumstances and the right environment for them to learn these sleep skills. So as a gentle sleep coach, I'm always looking for ways to minimize tears, minimize frustration, make it easiest on the baby to learn the sleep skills, and make it easiest on the parents to attend and assist them in learning the sleep skills, just like you would attend and assist your child when your child was learning how to walk. So with the sleep training, there's 3 methodologies. Typically there's extinction, there's time checks, also known as Ferber, and there's the Sleep Lady Shuffle, also known as the chair position, where you're physically in the room. Now, I personally trained with Kim West, who wrote, Good Night, Sleep Tight. This is the Sleep Lady Shuffle. I was actually one of Kim West's first 50 coaches that she ever trained in the entire United States, which is totally amazing. So I've been doing this for 10 years, and I'm super proud to be a gentle sleep coach, because I just really want to provide that optimal learning environment for your child, and really want them to learn lifelong healthy sleep habits, and to learn it in a gentle way, in a way that with lasting results, and with the parents to feel really good about the process, to feel really good and not guilty about what they did or how they did it. And so with that being said, Lindsay, if you decide like, okay, I'm really ready to help my child wean down and turn off those hunger clocks and help my child learn the independent sleep skills in the middle of the night, like she has at the onset of sleep, you are going to have to do some sleep training. It will probably, with a 15-month-old, I think realistically, you need 2 to 3 weeks to be able to do this gently and systematically. And, again, for those lasting results, you'll probably need to be very conscientious about following a true methodology and dedicating that 2 to 3 weeks to being really consistent. And, again, if you want to do it on your own, the book that I would recommend is Good Night, Sleep Tight by Kim West. And the good news is you do not have to read this whole book. You can simply go to the section on 15-month-olds and read that section. And then I would also read the section on understanding tears, because you need to start to really understand your role as the coach. And so you can, if you want to do it alone, you can do it here. Now, if you feel like you want support and you're like, I don't want to do it alone, I'm too tired, or I don't want to do it the wrong way, I want to feel good about the process, I want somebody to hold my hand, then that's where, getting a sleep coach comes in to really help customize the experience for you, so that it meets your family values, meets the temperament of your child, and obviously really meets all your nursing goals, and etc. If you feel like you need to talk to somebody live about that, Anastasia, if you can put in the chat how Lindsay T might be able to want to get a hold of me to schedule an opportunity to talk about her unique sleep situation and talk about what it would look like to work with a coach on customizing a sleep plan and working with her day by day, step by step in implementation. That's how I work. That's how I'm a little bit different from a lot of other coaches. Is I really I talk to my families almost every day. So I have a lot of chats throughout the day, a lot of Zoom calls, especially now that we're in COVID. And because I really believe that with sleep being the learned skill, we need to kind of keep tweaking and making micro steps to help accommodate the child's learning profile. And so, Lindsay, if you needed to kind of explore that option and getting some support, absolutely, you can go here to talk to a sleep expert to schedule a sleep strategy session, and we can have a conversation. Okay, because ultimately what I want for you, Lindsay, is that you do have the opportunity to wake up refreshed, that you can do your morning exercise, and that you can really enjoy being with your kids. Because I know right now, after 15 months of multiple wakings per night, you're ready for a change. Okay. All right. So we are going to move on to another 15-month-old. This is Deanna from Canada. And so Deanna is awesome. Deanna has been working on sleep and making, literally like such great systematic success in improving the sleep, but she's hit another roadblock, and the roadblock is called teething. And I'm so sorry this is happening, Deanna. I can't believe it. So Deanna said, for a couple of days it was amazing. Our nights and naps were perfect. And then all of a sudden the molars broke through and everything went sideways. Okay. So first of all, those of you that have been through a milestone, nightmare, regression, or a teething, disruptor, regression, or you had travel or your child had illness. I mean, this is it, you guys. Like, regressions happen, and it's miserable when they do. But again, aligning expectations, they will happen. Typically, regressions happen around travel, illness, milestones, and sometimes even with teething. And so, Deanna is a perfect example of this. Like, she's been working on sleep coaching with her baby, and her baby was doing drowsy but awake at bedtime. Her baby was sleeping mostly through the night. She was, working on naps. Like, everything was finally coming into alignment. And right at that critical moment where she could rest easy and feel good about everything, boom, here comes the teething. So her question is, here I am, this child is like miserable in the middle of the night because of the teething. Do I go and help my child? Do I let them cry because I've been in sleep training mode? Okay, so great question, Deanna. So here's the deal. I always believe that when a child is going through one of these 4 problems that cause a regression, that it's perfectly acceptable to go and assist our babies to go back to sleep. So the key is, though, what you want to try to do is not go all the way back to the original crutches. So I can't remember exactly what, okay. So Deanna's original crutch was nursing to sleep, kind of the feed to sleep, like we just talked about with Lindsay. And so Deanna's gotten to the point where she did not need to feed to sleep at bedtime. She did not need to feed to sleep back in the middle of the night, and her child was sleeping through without any feedings. So here we have the molars showing up, and the baby's miserable in the middle of the night, and she's wondering, how can I help my baby go back to sleep? And I'm too afraid to reintroduce a crutch. So here's the thing. If you start from the feed to sleep crutch, you don't want to go back to that one as the first line of defense, because the feed to sleep crutch is the hardest crutch to unwind. And Deanna's done a great job taking the last several weeks to unravel it. So I wouldn't go back to the feed to sleep, Deanna. But what I would do is find other ways to support your child to go back to sleep during one of these regression, legitimate reasons to regress. So, rocking, holding, patting, whatever is kind of the the lesser sleep crutch, like if you started with a feed to sleep, like you don't want to go back to that one. If you started with rocking, you don't want to go back to that one. You might want to go back to padding or or holding without rocking. Or if you were the preferred sleep crutcher, then have dad go in instead of you. So you just don't want to like reintroduce the same sleep crutch you just ended. Okay. But you can go in and help the baby. But here's the ticket. Once you're done with whatever caused the regression, and you can tell the child's well again, they've gotten through their milestone, the teeth have burst and the child's not in pain anymore, you've got to go right back to your original sleep training method and get right back on that. And you probably need to spend at least between 3 and 7 days of being super consistent with your sleep training strategies that you originally used. And usually your child will like snap right back because they have indeed learned their original sleep skills. They just need to get those right circumstances and the right environment to start practicing them again. So that kind of leads me to the next thing that Deanna said was this, is she said, well, when I originally did some sleep training, I did end up doing extinction, which again, you guys, that Dr. Weisbluth is the author that wrote, is proposed essentially extinction is also, termed cry it out. And Deanna's feeling bad because she said that when she tried other sleep coaching methods, such as the Ferber method, when she was going in and out of the room, her baby just literally would go more ballistic than if she was out of the room. So she's right now, Deanna's just feeling like really guilty, like, oh my gosh, I just finished sleep training. Oh my gosh, I might have to do this again after this tooth regression is over. And oh my gosh, I'm not sure if I have it in me to do extinction again. However, that is the best methodology for my baby because when I tried the other versions, it didn't work. Okay, so this is a tough one. Yeah, this is a great question. I'd want to talk to you and learn more about what you really tried in the past, because I would imagine that there is a way to provide your child a gentler method than extinction that doesn't overstimulate them from your presence. So sometimes when people do sleep training and they do the Ferber, they go in and out of the room too frequently, meaning like every 3 minutes, every 5 minutes, every 7 minutes. And just the popping in and the popping out is like way too intense for the baby. And then the baby ends up screaming more. Whereas if we did longer time checks, sometimes they scream less. So Deanna, if you're here, if you could let me know whatever methods you tried so that I can give you a little bit more specific feedback on how to advise you from here. But just so I don't want you hanging out with mommy guilt. So here's the good news. Your baby is sleep trained. Okay. You did it. The hardest part is over. You helped your baby boy learn how to go to sleep independently at bedtime, and he started sleeping through the night. He got through his early rising tendencies and he started taking awesome naps. Okay. So literally, like, you did it. Your child is sleep trained. All that's happened in this scenario is that he's been uncomfortable because of the molars. It is totally okay to go in and offer some support. And then when he's better, you just need to go back and do a couple of days of offering less support. And he will go back to resuming using his sleep skills, because he already has his sleep skills. And it hasn't been that many days that you've had to offer some support. So Deanna just wrote and said, I tried picking up and putting down and patting and shushing. So Deanna, again, like, what happens a lot of times is if we don't do the Ferber method the right way for the temperament of our baby, we end up overstimulating them by accident. So it's possible that you don't have to go back to full extinction to kind of clean up any sleep crutches that might emerge because of the teething episode. But you could probably do some check-ins, but maybe I would not, when you go in, I wouldn't touch, I wouldn't talk, and I would wait longer in between the checks. That's one option. Or what you could do is you could sit in the room, but in the darkest, deepest corner and just not say anything, because even sitting in the room offers them support because they can still sense you and smell you. But I also think you might be surprised, Deanna, that if you just offer your baby a little bit of support to get through the teething, that once you could tell the pain is over, you might be pleasantly surprised that he starts sleeping through the night again, and you don't have to do anything at all. The other thing I want to mention about regressions is if you can try to maintain bedtime with the child doing drowsy but awake, even despite like, in other words, if the child's going on teething or the child is really sick, if you can still have them maintain drowsy but awake at bedtime and then still offer them some sleep support in the middle of the night, usually getting back on track after the regression episode is over, they snap back really quickly. And sometimes we don't even have to do some sleep training. And I'm hoping that that's what will happen with you, Deanna, because you've done such a good job at creating an optimal environment for your child to learn. The other thing I want to mention is that, we talked earlier about how, I think it was Eva that had the 12-week-old, and how, the dad is, the baby's doing this, mommy preference thing. I just want you to know that mommy preference issue, where a child becomes a kind of, how do I want to describe it? Even a baby as young as 12 months old, and even a child as old as 5 and 6 years of age, can become very dominant in their mommy preference. And it's hard. It's hard on the mom because she always feels like she has to be available. It's hard on the child because they only really have one person to go to. It becomes hard on the marriage because one caregiver is going to get worn out, because who's taking care of the caregiver, right? If mom's caretaking 24/7, who's taking care of mom? Because mom's probably needing to take care of herself. If she's caretaking 24/7, she's probably not taking care of herself. So if dad isn't helping with the caretaking of the baby, can then the dad at least be taking really, really, really good care of mom? Meaning doing the dishes, doing the laundry, doing the grocery shopping. Like, there has to be a compromise, you guys. And I know this is kind of, those of you that have been my client, I kind of do a lot to encourage you to even out the caretaking responsibilities, because the reality is that no matter how strong of a woman you are, no matter how much energy and zest and passion you have for your parenting journey, you can't be the 24/7 caretaker, because you have to also take care of yourself. And someone's got to help take care of you, because you can't be the caretaker and the housekeeper and the full-time working mommy and the volunteer extraordinaire and the high-tech executive. It's impossible to fulfill all those roles at once. So if those of you that can relate to this, and I'm sure you have, because in my own parenting journey, I've had to go through this. Guys, I have a 16-year-old. So imagine how many times owning my own business, how I've had to ebb and flow between, me being, mommy extraordinaire versus, coach extraordinaire versus wife extraordinaire, right? Like, all of these roles constantly juggling. So me and my husband are always having conversations about this. And yeah, are they hard conversations? Yes, but I have learned my lesson the hard way, you guys. If I don't take care of me, I crash. And I don't want you guys to have to crash. I don't want you to have to, because it will happen, and it's ugly when it happens. And then there's a lot of recovery of trying to get back up again. So that's one of the reasons why I get so passionate about talking about this, about how important it is to even out the caretaking responsibilities. And if it turns out that your child is like full-blown mommy preference and you've made a concerted effort to try to undo it and you still haven't been able to, okay, so maybe at this particular age and stage, your child is really being stubborn. That's fine. Then during that stubborn age and phase, then let's get dad to take on a whole bunch of other responsibilities so that you aren't doing it all. And knowing that you will go back to trying to even out the caretaking responsibilities with the baby. At a later date when maybe the baby will be a little bit more flexible, or when the child will be a little bit more flexible. So I just want to let all the moms out there know this is a common problem. It's nothing to be ashamed of, and it's nothing to recognize that it can't improve, because it absolutely can improve. But it just takes some deliberate thought and action, and it has a little bit of courage to bring up an awkward conversation with your spouse or your partner. But those awkward conversations are a lot better than going into crash mode. Okay. All right. So that's a wrap up for today. Those are all the questions we had. I want to thank you for being here. Those of you that are watching on the replay, if you have any questions, please just do #replay, and I will go back in there and check it out and respond. Those of you that want to submit questions for next week, in the top of the chat, Anastasia, maybe she could post again really quick right here, the link to submit questions in advance. I will always send out this Facebook Live in email if you guys join my email list, so that you can go back and listen to it later. On my Facebook page, I'll typically for about a week post it on the top, so it's easy to find in the Facebook feed. I am going to be doing June 18th at 2 p.m. Pacific. On June 25th, I'm not going to be doing it because I'm turning 50. And I'm going to take that week off, you guys. Okay, so look, putting my words of wisdom into action. I'm going to be taking a break from Facebooking and social media, etc., starting the week of June 21st through, June 28th or so, to celebrate my 50th birthday and to take care of myself, because I've learned the hard way, and I'm going to practice what I preach. So again, if you guys have some burning questions, let's get those answered on June 18th. And then I will probably be back again on July 2nd at 2 p.m. And I want to say thank you so much for being here. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.